My name is Eleanor. I'm 38 years old. And on the night my husband was supposed to ring the bell for his company's IPO, the night he was supposed to become a certified multimillionaire, he handed me a glass of champagne in one hand and a manila envelope in the other. He leaned in close, smiling that dazzling, camera-ready smile that had charmed investors from Silicon Valley to New York, and whispered, "Don't make a scene. Al, it's a settlement agreement. Knit tonight, take the 50 grand, and leave. If you don't, you'll make sure you end up with nothing but the legal fees." He thought he had me cornered. He thought I was just the frumpy, tired housewife who had spent the last decade wiping noses and organizing his dry cleaning. He thought my brain had turned to mush the moment I traded my blazer for an apron. But there was one thing Mark forgot. Before I was his wife, before I was a mother, I was a senior forensic accountant for one of the biggest firms in Chicago. I didn't just do taxes. I hunted people who hid money for a living. He didn't know that the clutch purse I was holding under my arm didn't contain a lipstick or a compact. It contained a USB drive with 4 Euro pages of encrypted financial records that proved his entire empire was built on fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. My identity. He thought he was serving me a divorce. I was about to serve him a federal indictment. Before I tell you how I watched the color drain from his face on a live stream to millions of people, I need to ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you let them handle your entire reality, only to find out you were living in a simulation designed to destroy you? Let me know in the comments below, because what happened to me, it didn't start with a bang. It started with a slow, quiet suffocation. To understand why that moment at the party was so satisfying, you have to understand the 10 years of silence that lead up to it. You have to understand the woman I used to be, and the ghost I allowed myself to become. 10 years ago, I was sharp. I was the kind of woman who walked into a boardroom and made CFOs sweat. I loved the logic of numbers. Numbers don't lie. People lie. People smudge the truth. They rationalize. They manipulate. But a spreadsheet? How? A bank ledger. It's binary. It's black and white. It's the truth. Then I met Mark. He was everything I wasn't. He was chaotic, visionary, loud, and charismatic. He was launching a tech startup, something to do with logistics and AI supply chains. He had the dreams, but he was a mess with the details. We met at a coffee shop where he was frantically trying to organize a pitch deck. I helped him fix a glaring error in his revenue projection. He bought me a latte. 6 months later, I had a ring on my finger. "I need you, Al," he told me the night he proposed. We were sitting on the roof of his shitty apartment, drinking cheap wine. "I can build the rocket, but I need you to build the lawn packs. I can't do this without you. We're a team. You and me against the world." I believed him. God, I believed him so much it hurts to think about it now. When I got pregnant with our son, Leah, Mark suggested no. He insisted that I step back. "The firm is stressing you out," he said, rubbing my shoulders after a 14-hour shift. "Why are you working for someone else's bottom line? Invest in us, run the house, manage our personal finances, raise Leo. Let me be the hunter. You be the builder." It sounded romantic. It sounded like a partnership. So I resigned. I packed up my calculator and my degrees, and I became the CEO of the Miller household. For the first few years, it was okay. We were building something. But then, as Mark's company, Logi Tech, started to gain traction, the dynamic shifted. It wasn't sudden. It was like the temperature dropping 1 degree a day. You don't notice you're freezing until you can't feel your fingers. It started with the allowance. I remember the first time he used that word. It was a Tuesday morning, about 3 years ago. I was in the kitchen, packing Leo's lunch. The smell of peanut butter and stale coffee hung in the air. Mark was in his suit, a bespoke Italian cut that cost $3. Zara, which I had picked up from the tailor the day before. "Oh," he said, not looking up from his phone. "I saw a charge for $142 at Trader Joe's yesterday. That seems high for a week of groceries." I paused, holding a juice box. $142? Mark, that includes diapers, cleaning supplies, and the organic chicken you asked for. Inflation is up. That's actually a really tight budget. He sighed. It was a long, heavy sigh, the kind you give a child who just spilled milk. "I'm just saying, we need to be lean. Company is in a growth phase. Cash flow is tight. In transferring $500 to your debit card for the week. Make it work. No extras. But the electric bill is due." I said, feeling a tightness in my chest. "I handle the bills." He snapped, "You just handle the house? You don't need to worry your pretty little head about the complex stuff anymore. You've been out of the game too long. Al, you wouldn't understand the burn rate we're dealing with. Me, the woman who used to audit Fortune 500 companies. I wouldn't understand a household electric bill." But I didn't fight back. I nodded. I internalized it. I thought, HES stressed. HES carrying the weight of the company. I need to be supportive. I need to be smaller, quieter, cheaper. So I became a magician of frugality. I clipped coupons. I stopped buying makeup. I dyed my own hair in the bathroom sink, the chemical smell burning my nose. Just to save the $150 salon fee, I wore jeans until the inner thighs wore out. Meanwhile, Mark's lifestyle was exploding. It was the little things at first. The business dinners that appeared on the credit card statements I wasn't allowed to see, but occasionally glimpsed when the mail came. Steaks at M. Astro's, bottle service at clubs in Miami. It's client acquisition, LHEDC, rolling his eyes when I asked why a client meeting happened at 2 o'clock. You have to spend money to make money. It's all a write-off. Don't worry about it. And then there was Linda, my mother-in-law. If Mark was the hammer, Linda was the nail gun. She came over every Sunday for dinner I spent 4 hours cooking. She would walk into my home, run a finger over the mantelpiece checking for dust, and look me up and down with a pitying smile. "Oh, Eleanor," she'd say, sipping the wine I poured her. "Is that the same sweater you wore last Christmas? It's charming how frugal you are. Very rustic. I like this sweater. Linda," I'd sigh, my voice tight. "Of course you do, dear. Mark works so hard, doesn't he? He looks so professional. It's important for a wife, too. Match that energy. You look a bit tired. Are you taking your vitamins?" Mark never defended me. He would just laugh. "Mom's right. Oh, you could put a little effort in. Maybe hit the gym. I need you to look the part for the gal next month." I felt like I was drowning in plain sight. I was the maid, the nanny, the chef, and the punching bag, and I was completely financially dependent. The house was in Mark's name for liability reasons. Because we're leased through the company, my own bank account, the one I had when I was singles, at empty, collecting dust. I had access to one debit card, which he topped up like I was a teenager. If I went over, the card declined. It happened once at the pharmacy. I was buying Leo's asthma inhaler and a prescription for my own anxiety, something it developed thanks to the constant gaslighting. The total was $45. The card declined. The line behind me was long. The pharmacist, a nice young girl, looked at me with pity. "Do you have another card?" "Ma'am." My face burned. I could feel the heat radiating off my neck. "No," I whispered. "You'll have to call my husband." I called him. He didn't answer. I had to leave the medication on the counter and walk out, holding my sick child's hand, tears stinging my eyes. When he finally came home that night, he didn't apologize. He was annoyed. I forgot to transfer the funds. "Oh, relax. Why are you always so dramatic?" "I transferred it now. That was 6 months ago." That was the moment something inside me cracked. But it didn't break. Not yet. It just shifted. I started to get a feeling. A gnawing, sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. It wasn't just that he was controlling. It was that the math didn't add up. I'm an accountant. My brain is wired to spot patterns. He kept saying the company was tight on cash, yet he bought a new Porsche Taycan for the brand image. He said we couldn't afford a vacation, yet he was flying first class to the Cayman Islands every month for consulting. He complained about the cost of groceries, yet he came home wearing a Patek Philippe watch that I knew cost more than my parents' entire house. It's a replica. He lied when I asked about it. A gift from a vendor. It's fake. I knew it wasn't fake. I know the sweep of a real mechanical movement versus a quartz stick, but I stayed silent. The catalyst, the moment that changed everything, happened 2 weeks ago. It was a Tuesday, again. Funny how the worst days are always Tuesdays. Mark was packing for another investor roadshow in New York. He was agitated, snapping at Leo for playing too loudly, pacing around the bedroom while stuffing designer shirts into his to-me suitcase. "I'm going to be gone for 10 days, he said, not looking at me. "This is it. The IPO is happening next month. If this roadshow goes well, we go public. We're talking 9 figures. Everything changes." "That's great, Mark," I said, folding a pair of socks. "Does that mean we can finally fix the roof? It's leaking in the guest room." He stopped and looked at me with pure disdain. "The roof? In talking about $100 million valuations, and you're talking about a leak? You are so small-minded. Eleanor, this is why I don't involve you. You can't see the big picture." He zipped the bag shut with a violent yank. "I gotta go. Don't wait up." He didn't kiss me goodbye. He didn't hug Leo. He just walked out the door, got into his Porsche, and drove away. The house fell silent. The kind of silence that rings in your ears. I stood in the hallway, looking at the door, ceiling. Nothing. No love. No hate. Just exhaustion. I decided to channel that energy into the only thing I had control over: cleaning. I was going to deep clean the house. I wanted to scrub his presence out of the floorboards. I started in the attic. We used it for storage old holiday decorations, baby clothes Leo had outgrown, and boxes of tech junk Mark refused to throw away. I was moving a heavy box labeled old office cables when I knocked over a pile of winter coats. Something fell out of the pocket of an old gray parka Mark hadn't worn in 3 years. It hit the floor with a dull thud. I bent down to pick it up. It was an iPad mini, an old one, maybe a Generation 4. The screen was cracked in the corner. I frowned. I remembered this iPad. Mark told me he lost it on a trip to Boston years ago. He had made a huge fuss about it, claiming it had sensitive IP on it, and had me call the airline 5 times a day for a week. Why was it in his old coat pocket in the attic? Curiosity is a dangerous thing. It's an itch you shouldn't scratch. But you have to. I took the iPad downstairs to the kitchen. I plugged it in. The battery I can flash to read. I waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. My heart started beating a little faster, though I didn't know why yet. It was just an old tablet. Finally, the Apple logo appeared. It booted up. I swiped to unlock. It asked for a passcode. I tried Mark's birthday. Incorrect. I tried Leo's birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. Of course. Then I paused. Mark was a creature of habit, but he was also arrogant. He used the same four-digit code for the garage door, the alarm system at his old office, and his luggage locks. 1985, the year he was born, but he usually did it backwards for security. 5891. The little padlock icon clicked open. The screen was cluttered with apps, games, news, weather. But then I noticed something. The Wi-Fi connected automatically to our home network, and immediately, the device began to ding, 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 ding. Notifications were flooding in, not from 3 years ago, from now. iCloud storage full. A message listening. Photos uploading 14 items. I stared at the screen, confused. How could it be listening current data if it had been in the attic for years? And then I realized this wasn't just an old iPad. It was logged into his current Apple ID. But not the one he shared with me. Not the Mark Miller family account we used for iTunes purchases. It was logged into M. King Venture, an account I had never seen before. My hands started to tremble. A cold, prickly sensation washed over my skin, starting at my scalp and moving down to my toes. I tapped on the Photos app. The most recent photos were downloading right in front of my eyes. A loading bar of doom. Download complete. The first photo wasn't of a spreadsheet. It wasn't of a whiteboard. It was a selfie, taken in a mirror. A bathroom mirror, but not a hotel bathroom. It was a master bathroom with marble countertops and gold fixtures. In the photo, Mark was wearing a towel. Behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist, resting her chin on his shoulder, was a woman. She was young, maybe 24, blonde, beautiful in a way that looked expensive. But I knew her. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to vomit right there on the kitchen floor. I had to grip the granite island to keep from collapsing. The room spun. The hum of the refrigerator sounded like a jet engine. It was Chloe. Chloe wasn't just a random woman. Chloe was the daughter of Mark's mentor. I had known her since she was 19. I had helped her with her college application essays. I had invited her to Thanksgiving years ago because she said she was lonely. I had bought her a graduation gift. She was looking at the camera with a smug, possessive smile. I swiped left. Another photo. This one of a baby bump. Her baby bump. Caption overlay little Marky coming soon. Can't wait for daddy to be free. I swiped left again. Document. A photo of a legal document. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My name was on it. And under the section for division of assets. It read petitioner claims respond and Eleanor Miller has made no financial contribution to the marital estate and requests spousal support be denied. I swiped one more time. A screenshot of a bank balance. Bank of Nevis International. An offshore account. Balance $14. 250,000 points arrows. I dropped the iPad on the counter. The clatter echoed through the empty house. I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't get air into my lungs. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and crushed my heart with a vice grip. He wasn't just cheating. that I could almost handle. He was building a second life, a second family. A fortune of $14 million while I was declining at the pharmacy for a $45 inhaler. And he was planning to leave me with nothing. For 10 minutes, I sat on the floor, rocking back and forth. The kind of ugly, guttural sobbing that hurts your throat. I mourned my marriage. I mourned the wasted years. I mourned the girl I used to be. But then, the tears stopped. Just like that, the faucet turned off. I looked up at the refrigerator. There was a magnet holding up a drawing Leo had made. It was a stick figure of the three of us holding hands. Mark wanted to erase me. He wanted to discard me like I was nothing more than an overhead cost he was cutting from the budget. He wanted to take my son's future and give it to Chloe, her little Marky. I stood up. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I walked over to the sink and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at my reflection in the window. My eyes were red, but my jaw was set. Okay, Mark, I whispered to the empty room. You want to play business? Let's play business. I walked back to the iPad. I didn't smash it. I didn't call him screaming. I went to the drawer where I kept the kids' school supplies. I pulled out a fresh notebook and a pen. Then, I sat down, unlocked the iPad again, and I started to work. Act 3 was over. Act 4 was about to begin, and the war room was open for business. For the next 10 days, while Mark was on his roadshow, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I lived on black coffee and adrenaline. I turned the guest bedroom into my command center. I moved Leo's playpen out and set up a folding table. I dug my old laptop out of the closet, the one I used back in my forensic accounting days. It was clunky and slow, but it had the software I needed: data extraction tools, forensic imaging suites, encryption crackers. The iPad was the key to the kingdom, but it was just the surface. Mark was sloppy, arrogant. People always are, but he wasn't stupid. He wouldn't keep the deep financial data on a device that syncs to the cloud openly. He would have a failsafe. I spent the first 48 hours mirroring the iPad's entire contents to an encrypted hard drive. Every photo, every text message, every location history ping. I read the text between him and Chloe. She's so pathetic. Babe, she asked about the roof again. Can you believe it? I'm closing a $50 and deal and she's worried about water stains. Just hold on a little longer. Once the IPO hits, I trigger the divorce. The prenup holds. She gets the house, which is leveraged to hell, and $50 K. We take the jet to Nevis. Prenup? We didn't have a prenup. I paused the scrolling. My heart hammered. What prenup? I searched his email on the iPad for prenup. Nothing. I searched for agreement. Nothing. Then I searched for notary. Bingo. An email from 3 years ago. From a lawyer named Simmons. Subject signed, execution copy. Attached was a PDF. I opened it. It was a prenuptial agreement. Dated 10 years ago to days before our wedding. It had my signature on it. I stared at the screen, zooming in on the signature. It looked like mine. The loop of the E, the slant of the L, but I knew I had never signed this. We got married at the courthouse. We didn't have lawyers. We didn't have assets to protect back then. We were broke. He had forged it. He had created a fake document from a decade ago to cheat me out of the future we built together. This wasn't just divorce strategy. This was felony fraud. But proving forgery is hard. I needed more. I needed the money trail. The screenshot of the Nevis bank account was a start. But a screenshot isn't evidence in court. I needed the transaction logs. I needed to know how the money got there. I looked at the iPad again. Mark used a password manager app. Of course he did. Last pass. I tried the 5891 code. Access denied. Of course. He wouldn't use the same PIN for the vault. I sat back, closing my eyes. I tried to think like Mark. Mark loved himself. He loved his achievements. What was the most important thing to Mark? His company? No. His money? No. His reputation. I remembered something he said once when he was drunk, bragging about his first big win. It was a college debate championship. He still kept the trophy on his desk at work. The date on the trophy for 12th, 2008. I typed in 41,208. Access denied. I tried the date. He incorporated Logi Tech. Access denied. I was getting frustrated. I looked around the room, my eyes landing on Leo's drawing again. Then it hit me. Mark didn't love Leo like a father loves a son. He loved Leo as an extension of himself. His legacy. Leo's birthday, 11/5, 2018. But Mark wouldn't use the American format. He always said the European format was more sophisticated. 51,118. I typed it in. The little green vault unlocked. I was in. It was like opening Pandora's box. Bank logins for Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of Nevis, Credit Suisse, crypto wallet keys, shell company registrations in Delaware, Panama, and the Seychelles. I started logging in. Systematically, methodically. I didn't just look. I downloaded 5 years of statements in CSV format. I ran pivot tables. I cross-referenced vendor payments from Logitech, and that's when I found the Ghost Protocol. Logitech was a logistics software company. They supposedly stay to optimize shipping routes. But looking at the vendor payments, I saw millions of dollars going to a company called Apex Consulting LLC for server maintenance. Apex Consulting was registered to a P.O. box in Wyoming. The owner of Apex Consulting? A man named John Doe. Literally, I followed the money from Apex. Apex paid Blue Sky Ventures in Panama for IP licensing. Blue Sky Ventures transferred funds to the Bank of Nevis account. The account owner, Mark Miller, he was embezzling from his own company. He was draining the investors' capital, funneling it through shell companies, and parking it in his offshore escape fund. This was massive. This wasn't just him screwing me over. This was SEC fraud. This was wire fraud. If this came out, the IPO would be dead on arrival. He would go to federal prison for 20 years. I sat there, in the glow of the monitor, at 3:00 noon. I am on the 5th day. I looked at the spreadsheet I had created. The total diverted funds column at the bottom read $28. 450,000.00. $28 million. While he yelled at me for a $142 grocery bill, I felt a cold rage settle into my bones. It was sharper than the grief. It was weaponized. I had the evidence. Now I needed the legal leverage. I couldn't use a local divorce lawyer. Mark knew them all. He played golf with the judges. I needed a shark from out of town. I called my old boss, Sarah. She was now a partner at a top firm in New York. Eleanor, she said, answering on the first ring. I haven't heard from you in years. Is everything okay? No, I said, my voice steady. I need you to refer me to the meanest, most aggressive forensic divorce attorney in Chicago. Someone who hates tech bras. And I need them on a retainer by tomorrow morning. I know a guy, Hara said, her own shifting instantly to professional mode. His name is Vance. He eats narcissus for breakfast, but HES expensive. $15. Zorro retainer. I don't have $15. Zorro, I said. But I have something better. I sent her a sample of the files, the Neva statement, the forged prenup, the text messages. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Vance is taking the case. Sarah said, pro bono for now. He says HES going to take his fee out of Mark's soul for the next 5 days. I lived a double life. By day, when Mark FaceTimed me from New York, I was the dutiful, Clueless wife. Hi, honey. How's the trip? Oh, Leah misses you. The roof? Yeah, I put a bucket under it. Don't worry about it. I made sure to look tired. I wore the same gray sweater. I let my hair look messy. I wanted him to see the defeated woman he expected. Good girl. Hey, she decide. Checking his watch. I'm busy. Hell, the investors love me. We're pricing the stock at $45 a share. I'm going to be rich. We're going to be rich. I mean, that's wonderful. Nark, did say, forcing a smile. I'm so proud of you. By night, I was meeting with Vance in the back of a diner 2 towns over. Vance was a short, bold man with eyes like a raptor. He looked through my binder of evidence with a mix of awe and terror. Jesus. Eleanor, he muttered, flipping through the Shell Company flowcharts. You did this in a week? My associates would take 6 months to find this. I'm motivated, I said simply. Okay, Vance said, slamming the binder shut. Here's the play. IGS going to serve you with the divorce papers soon, probably right after the IPO launches, so he can lock in the valuation before you file. He wants you to sign that settlement based on the forged prenup. He thinks I'm stupid. I said, good. Let him think that. We need to catch him when he feels invincible. When is he most vulnerable? The launch party. I said, this Saturday, the night before the trading starts. HES renting out the rooftop of the Langham Hotel. All the investors will be there. The press. Chloe? Vance smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Perfect. You're going to that party. I wasn't invited. I said, you're his wife. You don't need an invite. You show up. You let him try to bully you. And then, he slid a thick envelope across the table. You give him this. I looked at the envelope. What is it? It's not a countersuit. Vance said, it's a Keat and whistleblower complaint filed with the SEC and the DOJ. Sealed until Monday morning. Plus, a freezing order on all marital assets, including the offshore accounts. We got a judge to sign it an hour ago based on the flight risk evidence you found. I touched the envelope. It felt heavy. It felt like a gun. One more thing. Vance said, you need to look the part. No more gray sweaters. You walk in there looking like the CEO you should have been. I nodded. I went home. I went to the safe in the basement where Mark kept his emergency cash stacks of hundreds he thought I didn't know about. I took $5. Serith. I went to the salon. I cut my hair into a sharp, angular bob. I dyed it back to my natural, rich brunette. I went to the mall. I didn't go to the discount rack. I went to Armani. I bought a tuxedo suit, black silk, sharp lapels, powered to within an inch of its life, and a pair of 4-inch stilettos. Saturday night arrived. I left Leo with my sister, telling her I had a surprise for Mark. You look scary. Elle, my sister said, eyeing my suit. In a good way, but scary. Good. I said. I drove to the Langham. I handed the valet the keys to my 10-year-old Honda Civic. He looked at it, then at me, confused. I walked into the lobby. The elevator to the rooftop was guarded by security with a clipboard. Name? The guard asked. Looking bored. Eleanor Miller. I said, Mrs. Mark Miller. He checked the list. He frowned. You're not on the list. Man. I looked him dead in the eye. Check again. Or call Mark and tell him his wife is downstairs with the press. The guard hesitated. He tapped his earpiece. A moment later, his face went pale. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Miller says. Let her up. The elevator ride was silent. I watched the floor numbers tick up. 10th, 20th, 30th. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was beating slow, hard, and steady, like a war drum. The doors opened. The noise hit me first, clinking glasses, loud laughter, thumping bass, then the view. The Chicago skyline glittering in the night. And there he was, Mark, standing on a raised platform, holding a microphone, basking in the applause. He looked like a king, and standing right next to him, in a shimmering gold dress that clung to her baby bump, was Chloe. The crowd parted as I walked in. I wasn't the invisible housewife anymore. The black suit was armor. The heels clicked on the marble floor like gunshots. Heads turned. Whispers started. Isn't that his wife? She looks different. Who was she? Mark saw me. His smile faltered for a microsecond. A glitch in the matrix. Then he recovered. He said something to Chloe, who looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. He hopped off the stage and intercepted me near the bar. He grabbed my arm. His grip tightened, painful. What the hell are you doing here? He hissed. His voice low so the donors wouldn't hear. I told you to stay home. I wanted to celebrate. Mark, I said, my voice smooth as glass. It's a big night. You look ridiculous. He sneered, looking at my suit. You're embarrassing me. Get out. Now? Or what? I asked. Or I ruin you. He said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the manila envelope, the one I knew was coming. Here, he said, shoving it into my chest. I was going to give this to you tomorrow, but you forced my hand. It's the divorce papers. The settlement. Take the 50 grand. If you don't, I invoke the prenup and you get Ario. Leave quietly, and I won't call security. I took the envelope. I looked at it. Then I looked at him. I looked at the sweat beading on his forehead. I looked at the fear hiding behind his arrogance. $50,000. I repeated, take it or leave it. He said. I smiled. I think I'll leave it. And then I reached into my clutch. The music on the rooftop was a thumping, bass-heavy remix of Succession's theme song, ironic, considering what was about to happen. A waiter walked by with a tray of Tabby Arblin is. I grabbed a glass of champagne, not to drink, but to have something to hold. My hands needed to be occupied so I wouldn't strangle him. Mark was staring at my clutch, his eyes narrowing. What is that? I counterfeit. I told you. Hal, I'm not negotiating. The prenup is ironclad. The prenup, I said, my voice low enough that only he could hear, but clear enough to cut glass. You mean the document dated October 14th, 2013, the one notarized by a Robert Simmons in Cook County? Mark froze. A smile didn't leave his face, but it died in his eyes. Yes, exactly. That's funny, I said, taking a slow sip of the champagne, because I looked up Robert Simmons. He lost his notary license in 2011 for fraud, and on October 14th, 2013, you and I were in Cabo. Remember? You got food poisoning from the shrimp tacos. We were in the hotel room all day, unless you flew a disbarred notary to Mexico to watch me sign a document I've never seen. That piece of paper is a felony. Mark swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed violently. You're bluffing. You can't prove that. I don't have to. I said, The forensic handwriting analysis I commissioned last week already proved it. It's a trace forgery. Mark, you traced my signature from our tax returns, and you did a sloppy job on the loop of the Y. It's a 98% match for a digital alteration. He took a step back. The confidence was cracking, like a windshield hit by a rock. Okay, he hissed, glancing around to make sure no investors were watching. Fine. You want more money? Is that it? They'll give you 100 grand. Gosh, tonight. Just sign the papers and leave. I laughed. It was a dark, genuine laugh. You still don't get it. You think this is about the divorce. You think this is about alimony. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the thick envelope Vance had given me. I slapped it onto his chest, right over his silk pocket square. This isn't a counterfeit, Mark. This is a copy of a temporary restraining order and a worldwide asset freezing injunction granted by the Federal District Court of Illinois for 55 p.m. today. Mark looked down at the envelope. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely open it. He ripped the top, pulling out the papers. Asset freeze? He sputtered. You can't freeze my assets. The company accounts are separate. They were separate. I corrected him. Until you commingled them. Until you started funneling Series B capital into Apex Consulting LLC in Wyoming. At the mention of Apex Consulting, Mark went ghost white. He looked like he had been shot in the gut. He gripped the edge of the bar for support. How? He whispered. How do you know that name? I know everything. Mark, I said, stepping closer, invading his space. I know about Apex. I know about Blue Sky Ventures in Panama. I know about the Bank of Nevis account ending in 8,842. I know you moved for $20 million last Thursday to pay for the consulting fees. That just so happened to cover the down payment on the villa in Street. Bart's showed Chloe. I leaned in, right next to his ear. And I know that $450,000 of investor money is missing. That's not a marital dispute. Honey, that's embezzlement. That's wire fraud. That's money laundering. Mark looked around frantically. Keep your voice down. He squeaked. You're crazy. You hacked me? That's illegal. You can't use that in court. Actually, I said, enjoying every syllable. I didn't hack you. You left your iPad in the attic. Whatever is on marital property is fair game. But here's the kicker, I didn't just sue you. I filed a key and whistleblower complaint with the SEC and the DOJ this morning. I checked my watch. The FBI is probably raiding the Logi tech offices right about now. As if on cue, Mark's phone in his pocket began to vibrate. Then it stopped. Then it started again. A continuous, frantic buzzing. He pulled it out. It was his CFO. He ignored it. Then a text came in. I saw the preview on the screen. CFO America. TFEDSREGRE. THEYHAVEIWARINT. DONTCOMEIN. Mark dropped the phone. It hit the marble floor with a crack, but he didn't notice. He was hyperventilating. You destroyed me. He gasped, his eyes wide and wet. The IPO. Tomorrow. It's over. The IPO was a fraud. Mark, I said cold. You were selling a shell. I just popped the bubble. At that moment, Chloe waddled over. She looked annoyed. Babe, she said, putting a hand on his arm. The investors are waiting for the toast. And why is she still here? Security? She snapped her fingers at a passing guard. Excuse me. Can you escort this woman out? Mark turned to look at her. He looked at her like he didn't know who she was. Chloe, I said, turning my attention to the girl who had been sleeping in my bed. You might want to check your engagement ring. She frowned at me. Excuse me? This is a custom Tiffany diamond. It's a cubic zirconia, I said. I saw the receipt in his email. $400 on Amazon. On the villa in street. Bart? The escrow didn't close. Because the funds were frozen 10 minutes ago. Mark is broke. Chloe? Actually, HES worse than broke. HES about negative $28 million. Chloe looked at Mark. What is she talking about? Mark couldn't speak. He was clutching the freezing order like a lifeline. Tell her. Mark, I said. Tell her there's no money. Tell her there's no jet. Tell her that little Marky is going to be born while his daddy is awaiting trial in a federal holding cell. Chloe's face crumpled. The smugness vanished, replaced by the terrifying realization that her golden ticket had just bounced. She looked at Mark with pure disgust. Is this true? She screamed. Did you lie to me? Mark finally found his voice. It was a roar of desperation. You che, he screamed, plunging at me. You ruined my life. I made you. You are nothing without me. He raised his hand. The entire rooftop went silent. The investors, the press, the waiters, everyone froze. But before he could touch me, a heavy hand landed on his shoulder. It wasn't hotel security. It was a man in a navy blue windbreaker with yellow block letters on the back. FBI. The other agents appeared from the elevator bank, moving through the crowd with professional speed. Mark Miller? The agent said, his voice carrying over the silence. I'm Special Agent Rossi with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. Mark looked at the agent, then at the cops, then at the stunned crowd of investors who were holding their champagne glasses like statues. No, Mark whimpered. No, this is a mistake. My wife, she's confused. She's mentally unstable. Agent Rossi didn't even look at me. He spun Mark around and slammed him against the bar. Click, click. The handcuffs were on. You have the right to remain silent. Rossi recited, beginning the Miranda rights. As they dragged him toward the elevators, Mark twisted his head back to look at me. He was crying now. Ugly, snotty tears. Ew. Eleanor, please, tell them. We can fix this. I love you. Ew. I stood there, motionless. The wind off Lake Michigan whipped my hair around my face. I looked at Chloe. She was sitting on a bar stool, tubbing into her hands. While photographers who had realized the real story wasn't the IPO were frantically snapping photos of her and the arrested CIO. I didn't feel happy. Happiness is too light a word. I felt heavy. I felt the weight of 10 years of lies lifting off my shoulders, leaving behind a crater. But it was a clean crater, one I could build on. I walked over to the bar, where Mark's phone was still lying on the floor, cracked screen facing up. I picked it up. I placed it gently on the counter next to his abandoned champagne glass. Then, I turned to the FBI agent who was coordinating the scene. I'm his wife, I said calmly. I have the rest of the files on a secure drive. My lawyer, Vance, will be sending them to your office in the morning. The agent looked at me. He nodded, a look of respect in his eyes. Thank you. Ma'am, we'll be in touch. I turned and walked toward the elevators. The crowd parted from me again, but this time, they weren't whispering about my outfit. They were looking at me with fear. They were looking at the woman who had just taken down a titan without raising her voice. As the elevator doors closed, shutting out the chaos, flashing lights, and the ruin of Mark Miller. I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. The tuxedo suit looked good. My eyes looked tired. Yes, but they looked clear. I took a deep breath. Goodbye, Mark, I whispered. The elevator dinged. Ground floor. I walked out to the valet stand. My Honda, please, I said. The valet rushed to get it. When he brought it around, rattling slightly as it idled, it looked like the most beautiful chariot in the world. It was mine, paid for, real. I got in, threw the clutch with the USB drive onto the passenger seat, and drove away. I didn't go home to the big empty house with the leak in the roof. I drove to the 24-hour diner where Vance was waiting. He was eating a slice of cherry pie. When he saw me walk in, he didn't say anything. He just pushed a second fork across the table. Did he cry? Vance asked after a minute. Like a baby, I said, taking a bite of the pie. It tasted like freedom. Sweet, tart, and messy. Good, Vance said. Now comes the hard part. The liquidation. The asset forfeiture hearings. The media circus. You ready for Act 6? I looked at him. I thought about the spreadsheet. I thought about the Cale Evans and children Rust I had read about in a story, once a woman who rebuilt her life. Vance, I said, I just took down a $500 million IPO in heels. I'm ready for anything. Here's part 4, the final chapter of the script. 25s Oro minus ND CT 60 HE RE IISS NE5. The next 6 months were a blur of depositions, subpoenas, and lawyers in expensive suits. But this time, the lawyers weren't coming for me. They were working for me. The fallout from Mark's arrest was, as the news put it, catastrophic. Logi Tech's assets were seized. The IPO was cancelled. The investors, those sharks who had ignored me at the party, lost everything. They tried to sue me. Of course, they claimed I was a co-conspirator. But Vance was ready. We produced the War Room Drive. We showed the emails where I asked about the grocery budget while Mark was wiring millions to Panama. We showed the forged prenup. I wasn't a co-conspirator. I was the primary victim and the star witness. I remember the day of Mark's sentencing. It was a cold Tuesday in November. I sat in the back of the federal courtroom. I didn't have to be there, but I needed to see it. I needed to see the period at the end of the sentence. Mark walked in. He wasn't wearing his Italian suits anymore. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit that was 2 sizes too big. His hair, usually gelled to perfection, was graying and thinning. He looked small. He looked like what he always was, a fraud. He scanned the room. When his eyes landed on me, he didn't look angry. He looked empty. He looked like a man who had woken up from a dream to find himself in a nightmare of his own making. The judge, a stern woman who had clearly read every page of my forensic report, didn't mince words. Mr. Miller, she said, looking over her glasses, you built a castle on quicksand. You defrauded investors. You stole from your employees. And you betrayed your family with a level of sociopath Y that is frankly chilling. The sentence 12 years in federal prison. Restitution $28 million. As the gavel banged, echoing through the wood-paneled room, I didn't feel a surge of joy. I just felt a quiet, profound relief. The monster under the bed was gone. He was locked in a cage. I walked out of the courthouse and into the crisp autumn air. Vance was waiting for me on the steps. He was holding a thick envelope. The divorce decree came through this morning, he said, handing it to me. You're a free woman, Eleanor, full custody of Leo. Mark signed away his parental rights in exchange for us not pressing the forgery charges on the prenup. He didn't want another 5 years added to his sentence. And the finances? I asked, taking the envelope. Vance grinned. Well, the marital estate is bankrupt. The house was foreclosed. The cars are gone. Mark is destitute. I nodded. I expected that. I was ready to start over from zero. I had my degree. I could get a job. But Vance continued, his grin widening. There is the matter of the SEC. He pulled a second, smaller envelope from his briefcase. It had the Department of the Treasury seal on it. The whistleblower program, Vance said, under the Dodd-Frank Act. A whistleblower who provides original information that leads to a successful enforcement action of over $1 million is entitled to 10% of the sanctions collected. My heart stopped. He knew the law, but I never let myself count on it. They recovered the offshore funds? I whispered. Every penny. Vance said. The feds froze the Nevis account before Mark could move it. They recovered $28.40 million. The fine was another $10 million. I opened the envelope. My hands were shaking, just like they were that night in the attic. But this wasn't fear. I pulled out the letter. Award determination for dollars. 200,000 points arrow zeros. For $0.2 million. My cut of the justice I had served. I looked at Vance. Tears pricked my eyes. Take a vacation. Vance said, patting my shoulder. Buy a house. High, real one. With a roof that doesn't leak. I didn't take a vacation. Not really. I took that money and I did exactly what Mark thought I couldn't do. I built something. I bought a modest house in a good school district paid in cash. No mortgage. No leverage. It's not a mansion. It's a warm, sunny bedroom with a big backyard for Leo. And the first thing I did was hire a contractor to inspect the roof. It's perfect. But I didn't stop there. I realized that I wasn't the only one. There were thousands of women out there smart, capable women who were being financially abused, gaslit, and erased by their partners. Women who were told they were bad with money while their husbands hid assets. So I opened my own firm, Miller Forensic Accounting. My slogan? Trust, but verify. We specialize in high net worth divorce cases. We find the hidden crypto wallets. We track the shell companies. We expose the business trips that are actually affairs. Vance sends me half his clients now. I walk into courtrooms wearing my own tailored suits bought with my own money, and I watch arrogant men sweat when they realize who I am. And what about Chloe? I saw her once. About 3 months ago. I was at the grocery store, the same one where my card used to decline. I was buying organic strawberries for Leo. Not worrying about the price tag, I was in the checkout line. And there she was, bagging groceries at the next register. She looked tired. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wasn't wearing the Tiffany diamond or the cube zirconia. He was wearing a store uniform. Little Marky was in a carrier strapped to her chest. Sleeping. She looked up and saw me. He froze. A carton of eggs hovered in her hand. I saw the shame wash over her face. She expected me to laugh. She expected me to mock her. To say, I told you so. But I didn't. I looked at the baby, an innocent child who had a father in prison and a mother who had gambled everything on a lie. I felt that same sadness I felt at the launch party. I finished paying for my groceries. As I walked past her lane, I stopped. I reached into my purse and pulled out a business card from my firm. I slid it across the counter to her. If you ever need help tracking down child support, I said softly, call my office. We do pro bono work for single mothers. Chloe stared at the card. Then she looked up at me, her eyes filling with tears. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded and walked out. I drove home. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over my new neighborhood. I pulled into the driveway. Leo was in the front yard, playing soccer with the neighbor's kids. When he saw my car, he ran over, his face beaming. Man, Lan, watch this kick. I got out of the car. I watched him play. I listened to his laughter. For 10 years, I thought my value was tied to how much I could shrink myself to fit into Mark's world. I thought my silence was the price of admission for a happy family. I was wrong. Mark tried to bankrupt me, but he ended up making me rich. He tried to silence me, but he gave me a voice. He tried to erase me, but he just cleared the page so I could write my own story. I walked over to Leo and scooped him up in a hug. He smelled like grass and sunshine. I love you, buddy. I said, I love you too. Lord, he said, are we okay? I looked at the house. I looked at the car. I touched the phone in my pocket where my bank app showed a balance that was all mine. Yeah, Leo, I said, smiling. We're better than okay. We're solvent. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive, but I hope it serves as a wake-up call. Financial abuse is abuse. If your partner hides accounts, controls your spending, or makes you feel stupid for asking questions, that is a red flag. Don't ignore the intuition. Don't ignore the burner iPad in the attic. And remember, your greatest asset isn't your house, or your car, or your husband's salary. It's your mind. Keep it sharp. Keep it yours. If you've ever had to rebuild your life from the ashes, tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to see more stories about justice served cold, hit that subscribe button, because the truth always comes out. Sometimes, it just needs a good accountant to find it.